If they asked me, I could write a book about the way you walk and whisper and look.
Joining us on our Book Talk segment, great to welcome a man who has done something I think a lot of us have thought about doing at one time or another. The name of the book is called A Beginner's Guide to Paradise, 9 Steps to Giving Up Everything So You Too Can Move to Pacific Island, wear a loincloth, read 100 books, build a bungalow, diaper a baby monkey, and maybe, just maybe, fall in love. We're joined today by Alex Sheshunoff from out in Ojai, California today on the telephone. Alex, good to talk with you. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
That's a great title for a book.
Well, yeah, it's also embarrassingly long.
No, it tells the story of what you did.
Yeah, well, sometimes I had a party and somebody asked me the name of my book and I had to look it up.
It's a good tease because you read that title. Even we just did the one thing, diaper a baby monkey. Oh, I got to find out what happened there.
There you go. Yeah, it's a personal story. It's kind of positioned a little bit as like this guide, this sort of tongue-in-cheek guide, but it's just a personal story with a lot of jokes.
Your story, just to kind of familiarize the audience a little bit. You were living in New York. I'm from New York originally, just outside the city in Long Island, and you were one of those people that were working for internet startup, right? Doing pretty well,
yeah.
But you just kind of had enough, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was working running this little internet company in Manhattan when this tiny trade magazine. It ranked me 96th out of the 100 most influential people working in tech in the city. It was early in a small magazine, not an achievement. But, that day I realized I had two choices. I could spend the rest of my life working my way up the list, or I could cancel my subscription. That's what I did.
Was it a case of, you did that for a while and just the stress of it, or you just said, I want more out of life? You didn't dislike the job, but you want to do more? Yeah,
my life wasn't at that time sort of turn it upside down bad. I had a girlfriend and an apartment and a job, but it wasn't satisfying, and I was worried that in 30 years it would be too late to turn my life upside down. So better to make a break for it now. So
you were only in your mid-20s at that point?
Yeah, it was my late 20s, and then one night I woke up with chest pain and fainted in the shower, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something different. So I typed into Google one evening. I typed in really nice Pacific Island, which it turns out is not nearly specific enough. There are 29,000 islands in the Pacific, but one came up called Yap, and it seemed like it could be a good place, so I bought a one-way ticket.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. Yeah, Yap Island. Is that one of the ones they used to blow up the atomic bombs to test?
No, that was one of my criteria for an island I didn't want to go to, that has not been blown up. No, it's not too far from those, but it's in the far western Pacific. So to get there, you fly to Honolulu, and then 7 hours to the left. What's that? The west to Guam, and then a couple hours south to this little 2,000-person island called Yap. Turns out that they didn't have any beaches and they had a leprosy problem, but I found that out later.
How do you get a ticket to a Yap? I mean, now this is late 90s, so I guess there was sort of the internet then, but otherwise you go through a travel agent. How do you even get a ticket there?
Yeah, there's only one airline that flies, and so in the old days you actually call the airline and buy a ticket.
And that took you a long time to get there. Now, what did you bring with you? Just a couple of suitcases, or what was your plan at that point? Just go there for a couple of weeks and unwind, or what was your thought?
No, my plan was to actually find paradise with like a capital P, the sort of cliched screensaver version, to see if it still existed. And I didn't know about Tampa at the time, so maybe I would have gone there. But given my lack of imagination, all I could think of was the South Pacific. And with me, I was going to bring 100 books I was most embarrassed not to have read. And so in my suitcase were just all these books and then a couple of T-shirts, and I was going to sort of make a life from scratch.
So you just pretty much packed up a couple of suitcases, and did you have anything shipped out there, or what you brought with you was all you had?
Right. I found out that you can't actually carry 100 books, at least I couldn't, in a suitcase, and so I brought the 20 with me that I most wanted to read, and then had my mother ship me the other 80. One of the books that she shipped was actually one that she picked out, and it was Into the Wild, which is about the guy who heads to the wilderness and dies.
Oh, sure, right.
So that was her cautionary tale for me.
Yeah, when you told your mom about it, what was her initial reaction? I guess like any mom, right? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, she first said, I told her I was moving to Yap, and she said, have you, do you really want to go to Africa? I said, Yap isn't in Africa. It's in the South Pacific. And then she said, oh, no, you're going to wake up in a big bowl of soup like that Rockefeller guy.
Oh, right.
I said, well, I don't think I'm going to wake up in somebody's soup. And she said, well, he didn't either. So that was her reaction.
How primitive was it there? You said there was only 2,000 people lived there. Was it any type of industry at all, any type of hotels, or what did you have to do to find a place to live?
Yeah, there were a few motels, but they don't get a lot of visitors. But I realized that maybe I didn't want to live on an island that I could just fly away from the moment things got rough. So I ended up boarding a freighter called the Micro Spirit to one of the outer islands of Yap called Pig, and that really was ended up being very primitive. People were topless and they wore loincloths, and it was part Far Side cartoon, part screensaver.
Right. Now, did the people there on Pig, did they speak English, or how did you communicate with them?
Yeah, they did speak English, but it's so remote. It's 600 miles from Yap that I couldn't sort of announce myself in advance, and so I just showed up and asked if I could stay. And I realized, what would have been my reaction if somebody from Pig had shown up to my apartment in New York and said, I had this vision of paradise that looks a lot like your place. Do you mind if I unpack for a while? They were happy to have any visitors.
I was going to say, that's where you stayed for the majority of your stay there, right, on the island of Pig?
Well, I stayed in Pig and then a couple of other islands, but Pig was one of the more remote ones I was living on, and it turns out that they do actually have electricity on Pig. It was solar powered, and they had a DVD player, but just one video. And the video, let me try to remember. It was called Gas Attack Training Made Simple.
Right. From World War II, I guess, left over. Well, there was no video.
Yeah,
it was a film they put on video.
Yeah, I think somebody had a kid in the military or something, and so they had this video of people running into this little shack that was filled with smoke and then running out coughing, and they would just do that over and over again.
Now, you're there a couple of days. Do you say to yourself, all right, I did this, it's a mistake, or did you kind of get into it and say, I'm going to stick this out for whatever time you were there? Did you have that mindset?
Yeah, I didn't know how long I was going to stay. I did know that I just wanted to sort of simplify my life and take away, friends and fast, cheap coffee and see which I miss most, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But in practice, I ended up after a couple of weeks, I found that I really missed something I never would have expected, and that was chairs. People in Pig, they don't sit in chairs. They lie on the ground or on mats. They squat on coconuts, but they never sit in a chair. And I was ready for a chair.
and you met a woman out there, which you probably didn't expect, at least for a long-term thing, right? When you went there.
Yeah, that's right. On the other hand, maybe it was inevitable on such a small island. As my grandmother used to say, you put two goats in a corral and eventually they'll fall in love. But I did. I met a woman on a full moon kayak ride. We shared a kayak together in the dark, and we were just voices to each other for the first 3 hours. It was like meeting somebody in a confession booth or something. Not that I meet people in confession booths that often, but we ended up getting married and still are married.
And a couple of kids too, right?
Yeah, a couple of kids. Ian Shenanigan, Sheshunoff, and Andrew Commissioner Sheshunoff.
Oh. Well, it's a great story. I will save the diaper baby monkey, let the people read about that, but it's a great story in the book you have about that, so we'll let the folks read that. But the whole experience obviously was something that worked out better than you thought overall. I guess it would be, right? You got a family out of it.
I got a family, and I did finally realize that you don't have to be in sort of capital P paradise to be happy. I was able to come back and really and realize that that I had to stay focused on the things that I actually cared about. And it sounds so simple, but I think a lot of us spend a huge amount of time and energy towards goals that, working towards goals that aren't really meaningful or other people's goals. And so, I still have that and some other things I learned out there. And there's easy fun, there's hard fun. It was, parts of it were hard fun, but I'm glad I did it.
And the work you do now, you feel more meaningful, right? And more meaningful in your life, what you do now for a living?
Yeah, so now I'm writing, and I just get to try to tell funny stories all day. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a great book. It's a funny book, but also has a message, as you just heard from Alex Sheshunoff, A Beginner's Guide to Paradise. And Alex, you have a website you want to direct people to, or how they can get the book or contact you?
Thanks for asking, Doug. Yeah, it's A Beginner's Guide to Paradise.com.
Great. Alex, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Appreciate it.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.